You're listening to Peachtree Corners Life, a weekly online radio show sharing ideas, opinions, and news about the city of Peachtree Corners. Now, your host, Rico Figliolini.
Hey guys, thanks for joining me. This is Rico Figliolini. I'm host of Peachtree Corners Life, along with some other podcasts. And I have some great guests today. Today's discussion is about the MARTA Referendum that's coming up March the 19th. So I have with my guests today Marlon Allen and Paige Havens. They represent GoGwinnett, which is a ballot committee, so I'll read this part this way you're aware of it. It's a ballot committee registered with the Gwinnett County Board of Elections and the Georgia Government Transparency and Campaign Finance Commission. So just to get that legalese out of the way.
Right, there you go.
Representing and stuff, but thank you for coming, I appreciate it.
Well, thanks
Thank
for
you.
having us.
Yeah,
Thanks so much.
It's a hot day and it's a hot room right now, but we are at Prototype Prime, which is an incubator here in Peachtree Corners. So I want to do a shout out to them for sharing and providing this podcast space for us that they do every month, and that we do some great interviews here. So
Great.
looking forward to our discussion about MARTA, because lots of people are talking about it. So,
Well, it's a hot topic.
yes.
Certainly a hot topic.
Then tell me about it, right?
Yeah.
So people for and against it, and it's the only thing on the ballot, March 19th, that people should be aware of. So the normal election cycle of where you would go is where you would go. The normal precinct that you would go to. This is not something you come to City Hall for, which is what some of the things are.
Actually, in some of the cities, now I know in Peachtree Corners, there is nothing else, but in
Correct.
some of the cities around the Gwinnett County area, they do have a city
Oh, they do?
referendum on. Some are voting on the Sunday brunch.
Oh, okay.
law.
And we've done that. So.
That's
Yes,
right.
and then I believe
Yeah.
Snellville has a city council position open, so
Oh,
we're telling
okay.
people to double check with your cities to
Right.
make
Excellent.
sure
Okay.
that there has not been a special election called in your city, and if so, then you would have two locations to vote in,
City and
city
the
and
normal
county,
precinct.
correct.
City and
Excellent. Thanks for
You're exactly right.
Thanks for the clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in Peachtree Corners, it's just this one piece.
Yes.
So, cool. Great. So introduce yourself, Paige, and then Marlon. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Paige Havens, and I am a marketing and community relations consultant here in Gwinnett County. I work on a lot of different initiatives with a lot of small businesses and nonprofits, as well as some major corporations around, and I'm kind of known as a change agent. And when there's something big and important that needs to happen in this community, I've usually got my sleeves rolled up and I'm ready to go, and that's why I'm playing this role on the GoGwinnett solely as a volunteer. I have my own personal reasons for advocating for this, as well as professional, and I think this is just something so important that it's worth giving some time to.
Okay. That's great to have people like that are out there fighting and doing things. Marlon?
Yeah, I made my way to Gwinnett County in 2008 from Columbus, Georgia, and moved up here by way of the Boy Scouts of America, worked with them for a while, for about 12 years, shifted gears and went into ministry full time, shifted gears again, and now a small business owner of an apparel company called Ramp Marketing, and we specialize in youth sports uniforms. Outside of that, obviously, I'm an avid lover of Gwinnett County. Our family has moved here in 2008, as I mentioned, and we fell in love with Decula, Georgia, but more importantly, we fell in love with Gwinnett County, and we definitely believe that it's a great place for us to raise our family, and our family is very invested in every aspect of what happens in the county, and so that's why I'm here today. I really got my introduction into the county through the Rotary Club of Gwinnett County, which I'm a member of, past president, and also Leadership Gwinnett taught me a lot about how the county has developed over the years, and so very intriguing, and I think it was only befitting that we take this opportunity to be a part of this referendum and to encourage people that it is really the right time to do what we need to do to continue to have Gwinnett as a leading county, as a leading community, not only in the state, but nationwide.
I mean, Gwinnett County is unbelievable. I've been here since '95. Moved down here from New York. Used to mass transit. So this is near and dear to my heart a bit.
Yeah.
Right.
It's been a long time coming, I think, and I have no doubt that the referendum will pass. But it is a fight, because there are those that don't
That's
want
right.
it happening. And but I think, you know, once we get through the explanation, and I don't know who wants to handle that, about what is, so describe the referendum of, in simple terms, what it is that the people are voting on, essentially.
You want to take it?
Yeah, the referendum is essentially the county residents of the residents of Gwinnett County are simply saying that yes, we give our county leadership, our commissioners, and our county leadership the go, I say, or the yes vote to move forward with a provisional contract with MARTA. That contract is currently listed on our government website. It's currently listed on our GoGwinnett website, gogwinnett.org, and our residents can take a deeper dive into that. But we're simply saying, as residents of Gwinnett County, that we approve our county government to enter into a formal contract with MARTA.
And it also gives our thumbs up to be able to implement another 1 cent sales tax in Gwinnett to fund it.
Now, that 1 cent takes us to 7%.
7%.
So that is in line with most every other county in the region.
Exactly.
We're not going to be higher than anybody,
Right.
still.
And the taxation, from what I understand, sales taxes generally in Gwinnett County is generated from 75% of that revenues from
Yeah.
outside the county, people visiting from outside.
I'd really love to speak to that because, you know, I'm like everybody else. I don't want tax, you know. I'd love for there just to be this fairy godmother that just drops down
Yeah.
and just gives us, you know,
Exactly.
transit. But we've got to fund this somehow.
That's right.
So as a homeowner and a property owner, all of the property owners in Gwinnett can't subsidize this. The price tag is too big.
Right.
So the sales tax is the most efficient, effective way for us to get this done. Because like you said, we have about 25 to 30% is what's estimated is that of our sales tax collected in this county that come back into our coffers. That money comes from people outside of our county.
Yep.
All those people that come here and go to the entertainment venues and shop over at the Forum and you know that come here, that work here but live somewhere else, they got to buy lunch, you know, while
Yes,
they're
ma'am.
buying groceries
That's right.
in and out, and the gas that they buy as they pass through. So all of those people are putting a little bit in the bank for us too. They're using our infrastructure and they're helping pay for it too.
That's
So
right.
I'm a huge fan of the sales tax option to fund this because it really is a win-win for us.
So let me ask you, I know the 1 cent sales tax that we do for SPLOST,
Correct?
it renews every 5 years. And every 5 years it's a little different. So some years it's more park
Right.
stuff, and some years it's more transportation. But it's up for renewal. Citizens have a right to refuse it and say, I think we've done enough for parks and roads. We don't need that penny sales tax anymore, or education, or whatever it is. And most of it's usually for capital improvements
Mhm.
Correct.
or purchases.
Right.
Same thing with this?
It is, but this is a much longer term. This
Right.
carries us out
So how
for
long?
2057.
Yep.
2057?
2057.
That's right.
Wow.
And the
That's a
reason
long
is,
That's a long time.
this
Yes.
this is us saying we're making a long-term commitment to transit.
Right.
This cannot be a decision that we just have to come back and decide every 2 years. We all need to be all in on this.
Right.
Because some of the things, the infrastructure that we're talking about putting into place will take 30 years to build out.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand, is that we can't look at this as just a short-term fix. This is a long-term plan that carries us out with long-term solutions to not only the status of where we are today, but where we vision to be as a community in the future.
So let me ask you, on a yearly basis, or at least at the beginning, how much does that raise? How much revenue in year one will that raise, for example?
I'm not sure how much. I don't think that number has been
Estimated?
estimated quite yet. And well, let me back up. It hadn't been shared with us. I'm quite sure they know.
I would think, yeah.
But I do know that over the first 6 years, there's or at least an estimated amount that we will help to cover operating cost of this initial plan to MARTA. To the average person, Rico, they get an oil change in their car, right? There are some upkeep that they have to do, preventative measures in order to keep that vehicle running to the best of their ability. And so for us, when you think about a transit system, that a complicated transit system, an advanced transit system that is servicing a county that's growing faster than probably any county in America, nearly 1 million people in America, in our county, then the maintenance for that will carry over the course of the first 6 years of 29%. I think it's about 29% of what we collect will go back to pay for maintenance for the services that are provided.
And that sort of makes sense to me because, quite frankly, none of the mass transit systems in the country run in a profit, if you will. Everything's always in a deficit for one reason or another. Either and not necessarily because of ridership or lack of ridership or such, but because of those issues, maintenance and such. So
it's an expensive piece of
proposition,
infrastructure. It is, and that's the beauty of the plan that we have before us. I want to really make sure everyone listening understands this is so much more than just 5 miles of heavy rail.
That's right.
Okay,
well, that's what they talk about, right? The heavy rail going to Jimmy Carter and
right from Doraville to Jimmy Carter, and then possibly up to Pleasant
Gwinnett
Hill.
Place.
Correct,
Gwinnett
and that's number 2. But if you look at the plan actually shows, I think, further out even.
That's the vision, and that's the hope, and that's why you have to plan long term. And we can't. It doesn't make sense to build different legs of this until we know we've got the funding in place to do it. So we are at a choke point, and we are at a point where transit is the only option to address our gridlock. You know, we have, as a community, kind of turned down this option several times.
Right.
And
well, I don't know if it even came up to a vote, really, any of those times, right?
It did.
Did it?
We've
Yeah.
voted this down twice.
What was the last time?
It was in the late 90s.
Late 90s.
Yep.
Okay.
So, or early 90s, I think.
Early
But,
90s, about 91, I
but
think.
that was
we had the
before.
option in early 70s
Right.
when
Right.
MARTA was first formed. Then in the 90s, we had the option again. And, but we've experienced a lot of growth. The region has experienced a lot of growth. And it's hard to imagine I'm a native Atlantan, okay? So I don't remember much of a life without MARTA somewhere, okay? But I didn't realize that MARTA only touches 2 counties in the region, and that's Fulton and DeKalb.
Yep.
Now it's inched into Clayton,
Right.
but when you think about it, we've got 13 metro Atlanta counties that are just busting at the seams with prosperity and growth. We've got to interconnect. So, this is direct benefit to us here in our community, but also it is an opportunity for us to invest in the future growth of the region overall.
Now, and we were talking a little bit about this heavy rail part component,
Right.
which is really the first part of Jimmy Carter in '85, right?
Right.
Correct.
That's the part that would come in first, and that we say first, but that could be 5 years from now. I mean, but that's
Right.
12 years.
12 years.
12
So
actually, it's not
It
even
won't be
first.
first.
Right.
Expanded bus routes and
Correct.
some of those options will be first.
And that's what I
As a matter
wanted
of
to get to. So transit, when we say transit, we're talking bus routes.
It includes bus routes, direct routes, express routes, micro transit. There's a great pilot going on over in the Snellville area where they'll literally come pick you up at your door. It involves paratransit with a bus.
Oh, really?
Whether it's a bus or some sort of transportation that will get you from point A to point B.
So last mile, first mile.
Yeah.
And this also involves paratransit. And so it's such a, you know, for those who don't know, paratransit helps to support those with disabilities. So so this is not only connecting us into the region, but it's also interconnecting us. Interestingly enough, right here on Holcomb Bridge, there is actually a line from MARTA that runs from Fulton County, and a Gwinnett County bus line that runs right up to it, and within that, they literally are within a mile of each other, and they don't connect because MARTA can't come across the Gwinnett County line. So think about, that's not going to take long for us to fix. The bus can now drive over there, and we now have that connectivity. So those will be some instant wins.
And I'm wondering why we didn't take it that last mile to get to that bus.
We can't connect them because our service and their service aren't intertwined.
That's right.
And so it is a great divide. And so many people ask us, why MARTA? Well, what other choice do we have? I mean, you know, first of all, MARTA's changed a lot, and the MARTA's image has changed a lot over the last 10 years, and what they have done to revamp their board and revamp the region's trust in their services and system. But MARTA is the mass transit in our community. We don't have 3 or 4 choices.
That's right.
So if we're gonna connect to a bigger network here, that's got to happen, and they are subject matter experts. They're done. So they said, well, why can't Gwinnett build it out? Why can't we have our own? Gwinnett County government is not necessarily the transit specialists.
Right.
You know, I mean, we have a small transit division, but we've done about as much as we can do with it independently.
That's right.
We need experts in this to help us make this system more efficient, more effective, and be able to serve more people.
That's right.
And to have greater impact in the region.
Rico, I just want to say this, and I think it's so befitting. We just come off the 53rd Super Bowl, right?
Yes.
And you're talking about an organization, the NFL. It's a multi-billion-dollar organization, and they take cities and communities through the ringer when they consider bringing the greatest sporting event, to a particular city. And for us to be able to come off of the Super Bowl and to know that MARTA played a huge role in making sure that event was successful. I mean, I've heard people talk about the Atlanta being the host like I've never heard them talk about it before. And I was privileged to go out to San Diego for the Super Bowl when John Elway won his first. I was in Miami when Atlanta went, and that was unfortunate. But
I should bring that up.
I know, right? We'll get back soon. But I mean, we are right off of what I think was a successful, this region being a successful host. And not only that, we're seeing numbers in terms of the number of people that MARTA was able to transport back and forth throughout the course of that week. And it didn't just start, it just wasn't on Sunday. I mean, Super Bowl fans came in a week before, and we know that even more. And MARTA made some changes on the fly. They made adjustments to their current system so that they were able to accommodate the influx of tourists.
Right.
And I think that's commendable. And I think we would be absolutely crazy if we didn't consider, MARTA in this expansion to Gwinnett County. And so we believe that our county leaders have done a phenomenal job in researching and doing their due diligence to make sure that this was the best, that we've presented the best possible options so that our quality of life will obviously increase, and it won't have a negative impact on it. So,
it's interesting. I remember living in New York when we had you have the subways, you have Long Island Railroad.
Right.
People don't. If you're not familiar with New York, you have 5 boroughs, so the counties that comprise the city of New York, and then you have Long Island, which is 2 other counties out that way. And they built what was called the Long Island Railroad because they wanted the suburbs to be able to come into the city to work and not have to worry about being stuck in traffic for 3 hours, because you literally could be stuck in traffic for 2 hours good. if you're coming from if you're driving from Long Island.
If you're
during
driving
rush hour.
from Lawrenceville to downtown, that can happen too.
And people tell me that, and I'm like, no.
I experience it often,
That's
yes.
right.
And thank God I work like literally 20 minutes from home, so it's not so bad for me. But those poor souls that have to do the bus or the train. My son took MARTA as a commuter to GSU, Georgia State University, from Peachtree Corner. So he would drive to the MARTA station in Doraville and take that down. For the most part, everything was fine. Now, sometimes you have things happen, just like every other, mass transit system.
Yep.
There's always going to be either crime or panhandlers or things like that going on. But in essence, he was comfortable doing that and taking that, and it worked for him instead of driving in. I think that's the fear of some people, and that's why in 70 it failed, I guess in 90 it failed because Gwinnett County was a different county back then.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's changed. It's majority minority now. It's 1 million people. It's a growing metropolis. It's being urbanized almost in certain parts of the county. But speak to the fact that, yes, we're going to have heavy rail. It's going to take forever, a long time for it to come out. But really transit is the piece that is of interest, and how that would work. Because I had questions there too, why certain things may not be done, or at least that I did not see in the plan.
Well, let's step back a minute and realize that this is just the first phase of this plan. This isn't like the end-all, be-all. You start with a plan, and as many of us know, especially business owners, you're going to move, and this is a living, breathing thing that's going to move and evolve based upon what the needs are and how things are going to, what priorities need to be in place for our community. So let's take, for example, like right away, we're looking at something quick and easy that can happen right away with this new contract with MARTA. And I'd like to make the point, what this is saying is that MARTA will run our transit system in Gwinnett County. MARTA will be our transit provider with this contract.
Okay.
So we're turning this over to the subject matter experts to connect. So the first thing they're going to do is connect those routes that are just sitting, butting right up to each other and aren't working.
Okay.
They are immediately going to be able to start expanding the hours that we offer. I have a lot of people say, Paige, I see a lot of these trains riding or buses riding around, and they seem pretty empty. Well, what we hear from the riders is that we don't offer enough routes, and we don't offer enough time, like frequency.
Yeah.
And that a lot of them need nights and weekends to be able to get where they need to go. So evenings and weekends, Sunday service will begin almost immediately. So we will already begin to put some big pieces into play. Those two are just quick wins. More routes will be brought into play. One of my biggest motivations is my husband is one of those. Your wife is one of those. That commutes downtown. They get on a park and ride and they go, and they take an express route. But I mean, my husband has 3 choices in the mornings and 2 choices back out. So if he misses that window of time, I've had to drive into town to go get him.
Really?
And I've also, we've had situations where his office makes a decision unbeknownst to him, and they close at 1 o'clock. Well, he can't get a bus till 4.
That's right.
So all this immediately will have more choices for those people.
I can hear the Uber driver saying, "Good, I should be down in that area."
There's a surge in Uber for sure, but
exactly right.
But this will allow more of those express routes. Another one that option in the plan that comes about fairly quickly, or it is faster to bring on than heavy rail, is the bus rapid transit. And what that is creating dedicated lanes for buses, so they don't have to stop. And you create, and I'm not the engineer, but supposedly you can create routes that keep them from having to stop at certain stoplights and various things, and they move through traffic much faster. Those lanes are not available to cars at any time, only for buses. And there's amazing technology that goes with that changes the lights and signals that allows those buses to get going where they need to go. So So there's going to be some early things on it that are going to, we're going to see some relief and some new options. But, you know, we're just going to have to be patient with it. And building the rail, the heavy rail piece of it, you have to understand, it doesn't even sit in our own county right now. We still have to cross through several other jurisdictions. But, you know, certainly the Peachtree Corners corridor here is going to benefit greatly. Now, the multimodal hub that's coming. So at the MARTA station, the first train station at Jimmy Carter Boulevard, part of that is a multimodal hub where all of these other aspects, the express routes, the park and ride people, the paratransit can all come into this one hub and then insurge into other parts of the system, okay? So I'm not even sure, ultimately, we might not decide, I don't know, that we don't need something further out because it's gonna be a hub and spoke service once we get it inside the county. Does that make sense?
Sure.
So, but what's great about it is, as I understand it, we own the land. Gwinnett County owns the land now of where that station is going to sit. We can go ahead and build that multimodal station now.
So there's no additional purchases, condemnation. Usually you have to.
Not for that, no. I mean, certainly there's a lot of right-of-way and roadbeds that, you know, are going to need to be done. But Gwinnett's been anticipating this and looking ahead to this and knowing, you know, we might not be 100% sure what's going to go on that tract of land, but they have been very diligent in trying to go ahead, as those properties have come available, to go ahead and scoop those up so that we have the ability to move faster on this.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Because otherwise people would be like, well, it's going to take 10 years before you break ground even.
Yes.
Right.
But, yeah, that's like, that's a big thing. I mean, we're doing a roundabout here, and it took almost a year to be able to get all the property together for the roundabout, because you're dealing with 4 different property owners. So I can see Peachtree Corners residents that work downtown that might want to do this, especially if because that's what I looked at too. I looked at, you know, you look in the city and you look at where the water routes, where the stops are, and they're not everywhere. They're reasonably good. They have added since I've been here, since '95. Certainly not like New York, but that's a whole different story, right? So, you know, but people look at it and say, are you near where I'm going to be going? Is there something to get me that last mile? Do I have to take 3 different things to get to that last mile? And how many times is it picking up? Do I have to wait half an hour, an hour between the transit coming there or not? So a little bit of it has to be, I guess, a loss leader in a way, right? The schedule has to be put in for people to get used to that schedule and wanting to use it.
And then you adapt. If something isn't working, that is one thing I think is so beautiful about our community, is that we're very innovative in our thinking.
Yeah.
And we have the ability to move and shake here, and you know, so that's why we've got to make a long-term commitment to finding a solution and to offering transit. And if something's not working, I have no doubt that we'll come back and decide. Or who knows what's going to be invented out of Prototype Prime here.
Right.
In the next 10 years, that there might be a whole new technology that comes out that would put 90% of this out of date. And then, but we've got to pick a place to start. We've got to start doing something to get some cars off the road. And a lot of people say, well, I'm not ever going to ride transit. And I said, well, wouldn't you like 20 other people to ride transit besides you? And then that frees up 20 slots on the interstate for you? Oh, I hadn't thought about that.
You know, the only thing I was concerned about, and I wish that it was, and it may still be, is that it would be more sustainable. Like either using natural gas, which is less carbon maybe out there, it's debatable on how that works, right? Or using electric vehicles to be able to do that, as opposed to gasoline or diesel engines to drive the transit. That's the only thing that I was looking at as a downside, a negative side to it. But that's something that could come about at some point, I would hope.
Well,
I was going to say, Rico, I just had a conversation with a friend of mine who really is researching. He's researching more than I am, the autonomous electric vehicles. I don't know if you've heard about those, but basically vehicles that nobody's driving, but you hop in them and they have dedicated lanes and
Y'all have
Well,
a test
smart-
program here, don't you?
Correct.
vehicles. Okay,
Yeah.
well, see, I didn't realize that, and so the technology is so new, and it's a huge risk to take to implement that type of technology where
Well, for sure.
it had,
For
it
sure.
hadn't been tested in terms of it being an electric vehicle.
For
So-
sure, the autonomous part. I mean, it's a little less frustrating in a dedicated lane, I think.
Right.
It's a little bit more easily done. But I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking
Yeah.
more about getting away from gas.
Right.
And
Well,
getting more.
Gwinnett County buses now use the efficient fuels. One of the things that's in a provision of the MARTA contract that is different than anybody else has is we have the ability to choose our service standards. So as a community, our commission could say, we only want gas-powered buses in our community.
Right.
We want to minimize that. So we might pay a little more premium for that, but we can say the buses that serve Gwinnett County, we want at this standard. We can say we want our train stations to look like this instead of that.
Right.
So when the opportunity comes, let's say the referendum gets passed.
Yes.
Mhm.
And the opportunity comes, there's already some sort of master plan obviously
Yes.
in place, or at least that was discussed. Will there be further discussions after that?
Always. Again, it's not let's close the book and go.
Okay.
I mean, you got to
Always.
think county leadership is going to change.
True.
And
True.
so
It has changed.
there are some
It has.
ideas that we believe, you're exactly right, and there are some ideas that new leadership will come, and as we mentioned, even technology changes. So you got to think we're implementing, a transit system in Gwinnett County that other I won't even necessarily say advanced communities have already implemented, but you get what I'm saying.
Sure.
So some, there are some metropolitan areas around the nation that have already implemented what we're doing right now. So you got to imagine that they are already looking to the next best thing, which I think will cause us to do the same thing in our research. And I even believe that our county leadership, particularly those ones that are in transportation, are designing this plan so that we can implement newer technology more
Yes.
seamlessly than just tearing down what we've created and then trying to build something new.
Right.
I think that's why there is hesitancy to say that we're going to put 14 heavy rail stations in Gwinnett County.
Right.
You know,
I can't see.
No, but I mean, everybody's like, well, I didn't realize it wasn't going to go all the way out to my house. I love it. In so many other initiatives, everybody says
Right.
not in my backyard, but in this one, it's if
Yeah.
you're not coming to my driveway, I'm not doing it. But
Right.
that the infrastructure is so expensive in that there are
Right.
other new solutions coming out
Mhm.
that are proving very effective, and our leadership has traveled all over the world. They've traveled to Asia and to
Right.
Europe
Mhm.
and to see some of the best transit systems in the world.
Well, they're doing it way better than us.
Right.
Yes, and so I've got to believe that evaluating those best practices and saying, all right, let's pick a place to start, let's do this. So and a great example is these dedicated lanes for bus rapid transit,
Mhm.
okay? Well, what if automated cars do come about? Now we've already got a dedicated lane
That's
in
right.
place,
That's right.
so I think that let's give everybody a little credit here.
Right.
They're looking ahead, and we as a community commissioned some of the best minds in the world to help us put this plan together.
Right.
And they looked at the feasibility of what a potential sales tax could generate, and what could we buy for that price tag, and what could we do to begin to push ourselves forward. And so that's where we've come in this, and that's what we
Mhm.
have before us. And it doesn't
Right.
have to be written in stone, but we've got to do something.
And I got to say that the former Commissioner Lynette Howard did a great
Yes.
job in negotiating
Yeah.
what she did, where the money stays in Gwinnett County for transit.
Right.
Yes. Well, we also did what really makes this referendum different is the control that Gwinnett has over the funds. So let's walk through that.
Very important.
Because a lot of people in the past, the anti-sentiment was, we're not just going to turn our check over
Our taxes over to
MARTA, okay? So, Commission heard that, went in and negotiated a deal. So, this contract says that every single penny that is collected comes back to Gwinnett. Doesn't go to another person. Doesn't go to MARTA, doesn't go to third party. It goes back into Gwinnett County coffers in a separate fund. And we have complete control of disbursement of those funds. So any contracts let, any project scope, any budgets, we have full approval of that before it's implemented. So we also have the ability to audit at any time any of that. And then we also have 3 seats on the MARTA board.
Right.
And what we probably don't need to underestimate here is not only do we have 3 seats on the MARTA board, but we have 4 seats on the ATL board.
And the ATL board is?
That is the Atlanta Transit Link.
Yeah.
And that's the new regional transportation group that's looking at, so MARTA stays focused on where they serve, Fulton,
Right.
DeKalb, and hopefully Gwinnett, right?
Yeah.
And Clayton. So, but there's another group that is formed that is looking at the overall regional plan
Right.
for all the metro area. And I think ultimately you're gonna see a blend of those, and we are just positioned to have great input, insight, and oversight
Right.
to all of that process, and have a very strong voice at the table.
So to be clear, I think originally, at the beginning, you said MARTA will handle and manage the system, because that's what they do. But we control the funding of what and how that disbursement of those funds are used.
Absolutely.
By MARTA, as
Yes.
far as, because they still have to be the ones that implement
Right.
the job.
And that,
if
yeah,
you will.
that's what Marlon was talking about earlier. In the first 6 years, 1/3 of the sales tax revenue that is collected will go to basically contracting and paying MARTA to provide this service to us. And then the balance of that collected in this period goes towards the implementation of the projects.
Okay. 6 years.
Mhm.
Sounds good. What have you heard as far as a negative that you can address here? You know, I'm sure you've been to other meetings and stuff.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
What's the biggest, aside from not being in my backyard?
Right.
The people that do that all the
Right.
time. They don't like change.
Right.
Everything's comfortable. And what they want. But what maybe 1 or 2 big negative
I think the obvious is obviously the 1-cent sales tax, and I'm like Paige. I don't want to pay more taxes, but when you think about the consumption of commodities within the community that you live in and what you consume as a family, and what you'll get out of it, that small investment, I think is well worth it. Now, obviously, Rico, that's my opinion.
Right.
You know
No,
what I'm
I
saying?
get that, yeah.
So, to answer your question, I think the biggest deal obviously is once it sales tax. The next thing is there is, at least in what I've heard at some of the open houses and town halls, is well, you're taxing me, but this plan doesn't cover, where I stay, or it doesn't cover a bigger portion of Gwinnett County. Gwinnett County is a huge county in terms of square space, and so, our rebuttal to them is that this is our initial plan. And as Paige mentioned, you have to start somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You have to start somewhere,
We can build on
and
it.
and then continue to build on that. And our I guess our encouragement to our citizens is that please know that county leadership that have busted their tails behind the scenes, not just in the past couple of months that we've been talking about it, but this has been going on 4, 5, 6, however long.
Yeah.
They've been thinking about it and also developing this plan, and it's all for the sake of the citizens of Gwinnett County. They are very, very considerate. They're very careful about making decisions that impact, you know, the citizens of our county. And I would truly say, and I just in my observation, that these folks, that our county leadership, they love us, they want the best for us, and the decisions that they are making, I just hope that our folks can really trust that it's the right decision, you know, and that there are no ulterior motives behind it.
Well,
there's always going to be some conspiracy.
It will.
Right. Well, I think it's important that we understand that it was a period of like 6 years where Gwinnett County has been gathering data on all of this. There were 30 community events held. There were 12-stop countywide bus tour that went around to all the different communities around. There were 10 focus groups, over almost 6,000 survey participants polled, as well as 200 public open house events and 1,000 true scientific poll kind of research done, asking Gwinnetians, what do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want? Where do you want it?
That's
How
right.
do you get it? That's where this came from. You take that on top of laying over what's logistically possible, and so I've got to believe that we've got the best plan here. So this is what we've asked for. And
That's
not
right.
everybody gets, you know, my kids don't get everything they want on their Christmas list.
That's right.
You know, but it is, this I believe is serving the greatest good in our community, and again, it's a plan we can build on for the future.
Yeah, you know what, I agree with you there, and you know, there are people that, it's not just about driving, right?
Yes.
I mean, there are other people that serve the community, that work in our community, that might not have a car,
Right.
might need to get somewhere, or they have a car, but you know, they're not going to be driving all the way into
That's
the
right.
city, but maybe they want to go, they need to go to Sewanee or to Lawrenceville to take care of something. They might be a one-car family.
Well, how great would it be if you had an alternate option to Uber if you just want to go
Right.
out for a
Yeah,
drink
that's
in the
another-
evenings and
there's
not
that
worry
too.
about
That's
the
right.
safety of your driving. So,
There's that too.
And there's a population that often gets minimalized in our community, and not intentionally, but it's just, but about 20% of our population are disabled. And this option offers new paratransit. Right now, our paratransit only serves about 20% of our community. This will expand out to serve about 65% of our community.
So if you're needing this and this is in place, you would contact the county?
Correct.
You'd register?
Correct.
And then you would be able to call any time to get
Yes.
service?
So, and MARTA already has a very extensive infrastructure in this as well. So,
Right.
so think about, I host a brain injury support group. So this is an important thing to me because I work with this population, and it breaks my heart when you have people who have fought literally to claim their life back, and they want to work. They want to be independent. They want to be contributing members of society, but they can't drive. The brain damage doesn't allow them to drive, but believe it or not, they really are, many of them are very capable of working. And there are lots of employers out there hungry to employ this population, but even like the developmental disability, a lot of them can't drive. So we could employ a whole nother group of people in our community if we could enable them transportation. So that's kind of like a hidden story over here,
Right.
that I hope that those who have people in their lives that suffer with disabilities, not to forget
Right.
the senior citizens, that more and more of our parents, I mean, you know, we're having the aging of America,
Right.
and they want to age in place, they want to be at home, but sometimes it's not safe for them to drive anymore. Now we give them more option, and maybe they don't feel as diminished in that way.
You know what's funny, when I moved here from New York and I brought my in-laws with me, they were so used to taking the bus
Right.
to, you know, the little supermarket place that where they could buy the fresh vegetables, and they would do
Yes.
that every week, sometimes every third day, because that's the way they were. They wanted their stuff like that fresh. And when we moved here, They were really short of us driving them around. There was no Uber even then.
Right.
But there was really no way for them to easily, even to go to Ingalls, for example.
Correct.
From where we lived, there was a 45-minute walk for them. And in August, summer, as most people know, that's a tough thing for a 70-year-old to do.
Mhm.
Right.
You know, and thank God we had good friends that would see them on the road and pick them up and bring them home
Right.
sometimes.
Wow.
But so I could see the utility here, and also the population is changing, right? Younger people are less likely to
Yeah.
buy a car. They're more likely
That's
to
right.
live in a city more close together, where there's, you know, I think the work, live, and play is overused.
Yes.
A millennial is probably overused, but there is that segment of the population that they want to be able to just walk out, go to dinner, take the train or the bus to
Right.
work, come back to the apartment or the condo, wherever they live. Gwinnett County's going that way. I don't know, is 1 million people enough? Do we need 2 million people to get us there? You know, the density, right?
Right.
Of that.
Right.
But the parts that are closer to the city definitely are getting more dense.
Yes.
That's right.
We're
Absolutely.
building, right? We're building on land that's.
Well, and history shows that when you put transit in,
Mm,
it draws density in a positive way.
yeah.
Because it brings more business, which bigger business feeds smaller business.
Mhm.
It creates more amenities for residents. You then have that, there's a lot of positive benefit, and that's just, you talked about objections earlier. Some people say, well, I'm worried about what this is gonna do to my property value. Well, I'm not a bit worried about it, because you can just take a ride down to Chamblee,
Yep.
take a ride down to Brookhaven,
Mhm.
and take a ride down to Lenox, and take a look at what those property values are.
Yeah,
Uh,
Brookhaven is a.
It is
problem.
just,
That's right.
you know,
Sure.
skyrocketing, and
Totally.
there are numbers that show that, you know, there are significant increases in that. So that's just, I hope that we can correct that perception.
Right.
You know what, it's taken a little while for those areas to get there, but it's, and it's also areas that weren't doing well to begin with, right?
Right.
Poorer population, rundown properties in some
Right.
places, that had an opportunity for someone to come in and invest, young families that want to start. And from what I understand, even Dunwoody right now, it's almost like out of price range for some people.
It
They're
is.
looking at Chamblee instead.
Yes.
Which is right next door, right? So, but these things, transit and all that would help. We're at the end of our
Okay.
time.
Okay.
So.
Wow, they went by fast.
I know, right?
Okay.
Everyone says, do we have enough things to talk about? I'm like, we
Yeah.
could go on for hours. on
Yeah.
that.
Right. There's lots to
Yeah.
discuss on this topic.
For
Yeah.
sure here. So why don't you give us, give whoever's listening
Yeah.
the opportunity to, where can they go to find out more information? When's the referendum election? Is there early voting, which I
Mhm.
believe there is? So why don't you give us some of that?
Good.
Go ahead, Paige, and I would love to just end it by, you know, asking our listeners for their support and giving them a few reasons why we really believe we can do that.
That's perfect.
Okay, so the referendum is March 19th. Put it on your calendar. Stop right now,
There you
pause
go.
this, go put it on your calendar, March
Right.
19th. But you can also do early voting for a 2-week period starting February 25th. So in less than 20 days, we can start saying yes to this. So make sure to know for sure where you need to go to vote. You can go to Gwinnett County's election website. You can learn extensive information about the plan and what is coming where at at GwinnettCounty.com. And there are also a lot of open houses being offered right now where you can say, hey, I live right here. What's coming near me? So I challenge you to go to one of those sessions. And then you can certainly learn how to help us advocate for this.
Yeah.
We cannot assume that this is going to pass. There are, we all need our voices there, and we need everyone at the polls. But our website for the GoGwinnett Committee is gogwinnett.org.
Yeah. And so we're going to ask you for your support, and if you were to ask me, Marlon, why should I vote for this on March 19th, and I'll say is for several reasons. And number one, I would say quality of life. I think that your life will improve drastically if you're not sitting in traffic. In the next 20 years, Gwinnett County will see an increase in population of over 500,000 folks, which means there's more vehicles on the roads, which means that you're going to be in traffic a whole lot longer than even what you're in now. And so for us as a county and as citizens of this great county, it's important that we are proactive in making great decisions to make sure that our quality of life is maintained. So reduce traffic, that's another reason. Obviously, we want to make sure that the gridlock that we are experiencing today is reduced and eventually eliminated, and the options of transit will certainly do that. And then finally, we believe that we're in Gwinnett County not only for the school system that we are certainly proud of, but the high-paying, high-wage jobs that not only are here now today, but will eventually come because of a more advanced transit system. So that's why I want you to vote yes on March 19th. We thank you in advance for your support, and we'll see you at the polls.
Excellently, well done. My name is Rico Figliolini. I'm host of Peachtree Corners Life. I want to thank Paige and Marlon for sharing their insight in the referendum that's coming up. And they will, or part of them, or maybe both of them, I know Marlon for sure, it sounds like, will be part of another podcast called Capitalist Sage, which I co-host with Carl Barham. And that's more of a business-oriented podcast. So we're going to be discussing a bit about how businesses affect policy in government. That's that particular one. That'll be on the 21st of March is when we're going to be doing that one. Or 21st of February. Actually.
There you go.
Doing that one. Yeah, but
Time is going by fast.
Oh my goodness, it's amazing. So make sure you're out there to vote. I want to thank again Prototype Prime for providing podcast studio for us to do this. And share this Facebook live feed or the podcast, which you can find on iTunes, iHeart, Spotify, any of the podcast places. But thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Peachtree Corners Life with Rico Figliolini. You can listen to our live stream on Spreaker every Thursday night at 8:30 p.m. or on demand at iHeartRadio, Spotify, and iTunes. Don't forget to like our Facebook page for notification of our live video streams of the show. Catch our other podcast shows at peachtreecornerslife.com.